Welcome to the Pivoting Wolf. Open conversations with interesting people from varying backgrounds across several different countries around the world. Hello and good evening, everyone. This is Rhonda Harris from White Wolf Consulting, speaking to you from The Hague in the Netherlands. And this is the first episode of The Pivoting Wolf. And we are going to be discussing a number of topics and having some, personal interviews with individuals. But currently, the topic that we're focused on has to do with midlife and mid-career. Our goal is to bring awareness of the various challenges, issues, and experiences related to this particular stage in life. It's a perspective that we feel very strongly deserves to be heard, and we want to provide a sense of understanding, hope, and inspiration for those who may be either inquisitive about this phase or who may actually be going through this particular phase in their life and are facing some of their own challenges related to this unique period. Tonight, our very first guest is Van Hinton from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Van, welcome. I know it's the evening here in the Netherlands, but it's the afternoon for you. Welcome to our very first episode of The Pivoting Wolf. How are you today?
I am great, and thank you for the invite. And I so look forward to this interview. And it's just a great time to be able to express, be able to put forward about midlife and where I'm at from a different perspective, I guess.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. So with full disclosure, I just want to, just go ahead and share with everyone how we met. We met last year, wasn't it? I can't believe it's already been a year. We
Yes.
were both taking the leadership course with Harvard Business School online,
Yes,
right? And
that's correct.
it was very interesting to get to know you in that platform and, talk about leadership things. And that was just such an interesting experience. And I'm so glad that we connected and stayed in touch since then. I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the past year. And that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you, because I was like, this guy is really, he's doing some things,
Yeah,
he's got no slowing to his role here anytime soon, so I'm very intrigued by that. And,
sure.
just to speak more specifically, why this project came about is because, it starts with self-reflection. I myself in mid-career, made some bold moves this last few years ago, and am continuing to grow and wanting to change and rejecting some of these messages that we get from society. Oh, you're too old, you're done, go settle down somewhere. And that is just not what I'm about. And so when I meet someone else who's not about that either, I really have to talk to them and connect with them. And so here you are. I want to thank you for being here. And I also want to thank you again for taking the time to complete the pre-interview survey that I sent out. I'm not going to go over all of the full details, but you gave me some very thorough feedback, and thank you for that. But just tell me briefly a little bit about yourself. I was kind of intrigued with the things that you wrote about your life growing up in the South. And I really liked the message that kept resonating throughout when you talked about love and humility, and you talked about Mr. Sweeney and Burl and David and Linda. And despite all of the challenging things that were going on at that time in the South, these individuals clearly made an impact on you, because here you are today writing about them. Do you want to just share a little bit about your background and include some of that?
Yeah, sure. I was the son of Ira Hinton, Daisy Hinton. I was the number 2 child out of 4 siblings. I grew up in the South, as indicated, Chattanooga, Tennessee. My mother was originally from New Orleans, and my father was out of North Georgia. My mother was a home worker, homebody person, and my dad worked in a factory, DuPont company. So I had grandparents, aunts, uncles, the whole makeup of family structure, um, which was a beautiful thing to help shape my worldview. And I, growing up in the '60s in the South, there was still some spots of struggle with civil rights that was still happening. And but I was one of a few children that integrated Lakeside Elementary School, where I attended school, and that's where my formative years of developing of who I was as an individual. And I think I learned to recognize that I was African American, that I was different.
Mhm.
With and so Burl, who was a lifetime friend, was the one that asked me. He says, "Are you brown all over?" And at that time, I didn't identify with color. I was just a child, and uh, and so we were playground friends, and myself and Burl and Linda, as I matriculated to school, um, come to be very fond of Linda. There was a wonderful, enriching relationship that we developed as children as we grew into young adults. And she was somewhat of a person that I had a crush on, and
Mhm.
developed to uh, fall in love from a distance simply because there was no race mixing, back then.
Mm.
I mean, people that were strong did, but I would like to say, and I'm giving you from my perspective,
Mhm.
that our courtship wasn't courtship; it was more of a lean-to friendship where we just treasured each other in love. I would say from a distance, from my
Mhm.
my point of view.
Right.
David was really important to me. David was a friend, that clutch friend that you grow up with when the thing of race started to matter, and the ebb and flow of understanding who we were as individuals. I would say all of them created a space of humanity where we
Mhm.
learned to love each other regardless of color. And so beyond color and culture lies our character
Mhm.
for friendship and existence. So that shaped my humanity
Mm.
in the early stages of being a kid and growing into a young adult.
So I just want to stop there for a moment and just really take all that in. That is just such a beautiful story against a backdrop of, you know, things that weren't necessarily beautiful all the time. And I'm putting that
Sure,
lightly,
sure.
obviously.
Oh yes, oh yes.
I think that's very powerful. And I want to ask you, so, the person who you are now, which we're going to get to shortly, because there's a lot of powerful things to share about yourself. So you said that experience shaped your humanity.
Sure,
As we move into talking about your pivot moments, and
sure.
I really liked this phrase that I saw you mention a couple of times. You call yourself a perennial, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to
Yeah,
elaborate on that
yeah,
in a
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
But let me just take you back a little bit in down memory lane. How much of that beautiful experience that you described that shaped your humanity, do you think also kind of contributed to clearly the strength that you have, that made, the other aspects of your personality,
Mhm.
what do you think life could have been like if you had, some different experiences? And the reason I ask that is because there's a lot of conversation that's usually had, as I'm sure you know, especially being in law enforcement. You've probably heard a lot of different perspectives about, there's a certain level of like learned helplessness. Sometimes there's victimhood, but there's perseverance. There's, and people have these opinions about the degree to which a person can choose how they respond and react to the world. So, hearing that really rich story, and I was so intrigued by reading that in your survey. It was just really, it resonated with me in a lot of different ways. I did not grow up in the South. I grew up in California, but I did spend some of my younger years in the South, went back to LA, and then moved back to the South. So I had a weird kind of experience, but I'm very aware of what you talked about, the South during that time period. My father was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. So
Mm-hmm.
I know, because of that side of my family, what it was like. But to hear your story and the part about your friend asking you, are you brown all over? I used to get weird questions like that about my skin tone, what are you? Like, it's just like, so it's weird. When it comes from a kid, they're just being honest. There's no judgment there. They're just being kids observing life from the lens of no preconceived notions. I just want to know how much of that powerful experience you think contributed to, why you're such the strong person that you are today.
Yeah, I'd say it opened me to understand life from a holistic viewpoint, from a whole, taking the lens and pulling it all the way back, and being able to relate with that. There are things that are in the world that are terrible, or people in the world that are not like myself. And for each moment or each time that I encountered a negative, I always draw to divine intervention. There was always something positive that would happen right behind that negative experience. For example, um, uh, myself and some other kids that I grew up with. I grew up in an African American setting, community, where everybody in the community owned every Black family owned their own homes, right? And so, and the main corridor, the main highway divided the where the Black families lived on the left side, and all the white families lived on the right side of the highway. And so, we all went to, was working to go to school together, and then we all would come together for football game nights, and we all shopped in the same restaurants. It was until, I think, the point that we went to a malt shop to sit down and eat, and this happened in the 70s. And so while we was there, I mean, I had picked blackberries, right, to raise money, because it was a dessert, and they call it a sundae, which was 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream with chocolate ice cream on top, whipped cream, and a cherry and nuts. So that was my whole thing of going. And the other guys wanted hamburgers and stuff like that. Well, when we sat down, the lady refused to serve us, and she basically told us that they didn't serve Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And we were shocked. It was 4 of us. We were just shocked. And we really didn't know how to respond to that, other than we looked at each other and we made the decision, let's go. Right on the heels of that experience, we got out, we were standing outside the restaurant, and a white gentleman came out named Mr. Sweeney. And Mr. Sweeney had heard what happened. And he asked us, hey, were we hungry? Did we have money? Because he owned a barbecue restaurant right up the street. And we was like, yeah. He said, well, I heard what happened. If you guys have money and you want some good barbecue, please come up to my restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And we did. And we ventured up there to the restaurant, and we went in, and we walked in, and I'll never forget it. The place was packed. As soon as we were kids, we walked in, and everything fell silent. People turned and looked in our direction. And Mr. Sweeney came from the back and said, hey, you made it. Come on up. And we ordered, and he had the waitress clear off a table for us, and we sat and ate. Well, you say, what does that have to do with a lot of things? Well, it showed me that, number one, that there were people in the world that had humanity in them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't choose what humanity looks like per se, from a perspective of a child looking out and seeing somebody or pointing and says, that's the person that has humanity. God reveals it. That power, that humanity within them
Mhm.
shows up, and it always enables you to grasp hold to it and receive it. So instead of that being a negative, it flips and turns into a positive. Now,
Mm.
what happened after that? We took that message that we experienced that day back to our parents, and everybody in the community started shopping at Mr. Sweeney's or patronized Mr. Sweeney's restaurant. And quite naturally, the restaurant grew and grew and grew. So, but the learning lesson was that um, don't judge a book by its cover.
Mhm.
And just because a story seemed to have a period behind it, it doesn't. There's a comma,
Mhm.
because humanity outweighs any injustice that happens to you in your life. And so that helped shape me and made me stronger and want to add to life instead of taking away from life.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah,
I really love that. And now I am trying to decide what direction I want to go in, because I know that, so I'm gonna back up a little bit, and I want you to
sure,
talk
sure,
a little bit about your pivot experience, because
sure,
I know that you just recently retired. And the reason I want to cover that first is because
sure.
I want to talk about, just a little bit about your experience, up to the point where you just recently retired. I remember
Right,
seeing that on LinkedIn, and
right, right, right,
what you're doing now, because I happen to
right.
know that, you're getting your PhD. Like I said, no, no slow,
Yeah,
no slow moving, rolling rock here for you.
right.
But from conversations that we've had, I
Yes.
know what's near and dear to your heart. So it's very relevant to the story that you just shared about your experience in your youth, how that shaped you, how that shaped your humanity, what kind of person that molded you into being someone who wants to help. And that's relevant to, if I'm remembering correctly, why you're wanting to get the type of PhD that you're getting, and also the other work that you're doing outside of that with community outreach. So let's just pause, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to just talk about your pivot moment. You mentioned something about, you said at 50 years old there was a pivot. I am a perennial. And then you went in to talk about self-efficacy, self-esteem, self-value, which I hear that really strong coming through just from
Mm,
what
mm.
you're telling me about yourself. It's so interesting. Um, I really like what you said. You said, I refused a stereotypical ride off into the sunset, and I continue
Yeah,
to bloom. So here we are. Okay. So you've had this amazing, youth that and we only have so much time today. I'd
sure,
love to,
sure.
really, I know you and I already know how we can just be on the phone and just go
Yes.
for hours, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but so you've had this really rich life, and then you come up to, this retirement. And so, since we're talking about midlife and mid-career and things of that nature, tell me a little
Right.
bit, how this crossroads here,
Yeah.
all this character that was
Mm.
built. And this is a very strong statement. I refuse to go off into the sunset, and I'm going to continue to bloom. So tell us, Van, tell us
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
your blooming, pivoting moment, and
Yeah.
what you're up to now
Yeah.
that you've retired already, and so now you're unretiring yourself in a sense.
Right. Yeah, 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 yeah. So, I'm a career government employee, and where you get all this wealth of training, and you get to see the fruits of your labor, the success of working to better the community that you live in, better your own life, better the lives of the people that are around you, touch people in a special way, in the best way that you can do. And so, but traditionally, it's always been said that you go to work. Well, you go to get a job, you go to college, or you go in the military. And so now I've jumped on all three of those bandwagons. But career wise, um, I got to a point where it was I was getting to the end of my career, and I'm like, what am I going to do with my life? And I am a perennial. I think one of the things about me is I continue to bloom. And nobody can just ride me off into the sunset, just because, well, you finished your career, you're at the end of your career. Here's that plaque, here's that watch, here's that
Fruit
coupon to go to the
the,
restaurant.
the
Yeah,
fruit of the month club.
yeah. And that's it. Not I. I chose. It is about self-efficacy. It is about who you are as an individual and the experiences that you have. I needed credibility. I needed credibility behind all those years that I sunk into learning and shaping myself in the craft that I was, to be able to go in another direction. So that pivot, yeah, started as a late bloomer, and I decided the best avenue for me to be able to truly develop into the person that I wanted to become, with the credibility that is so needed. Because a lot of people work 30 and 40 years and they have tons of credibility, but they don't have anything behind their name. And I needed that education component, right, to be able uh, to give me what I needed to step off into the next arena. So that being said, I'm working on my doctorate, and it's fulfilling, and it's been able to enrich me in a manner that the things that working in the community as a community leader, as well as working with other community leaders, being a consultant to leaders, uh, which is an amazing thing, has it's blooms, and I continue to bloom.
I clearly, yes, I hear that, and I'm so fascinated by that, and that is,
Yeah,
again, that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you. Now, let
good.
me ask you something. Now, because I've spoken with Sam about these kinds of things,
Yeah,
and with other people who hopefully I'll have an opportunity to interview them as well. But the very
sure.
common thing
Yeah,
that I keep hearing from people is like, I'm not done yet. I feel like I'm just getting started. Maybe they didn't feel like they were on the right path for a good part of their career, particularly, um, and they're resisting this societal norm of going off into the sunset and things of
right,
that
right,
nature.
right.
So this is really important to me. And one thing I really want to stress to, the audience who's hearing this is, this powerful story. Getting your PhD is not just a small little, oh, I'm going to run off and go to do whatever.
Right, right.
So I understand that you've got quite a bit of perseverance, and you're a self-proclaimed perennial, etc.
Right.
But what else, if you had to dig a little bit deeper, what else drives you, to keep forging ahead? Because clearly you could continue to be a perennial,
Right.
but you could have chosen to go fishing or travel or do some more, self-satisfying pursuits. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not judging anybody who decides to do whatever they want to do with their personal time
Mhm.
at whatever period in their life. But what is driving you to get this PhD? I know you talked about credibility and with the career that you've had and everything that you've already done. What was that little piece inside that made you feel like you had to get that credibility? Because it sounds to me like you already had quite a bit.
Right.
just from your career alone. So what else is beneath the surface there that's really driving that?
When you when you put yourself out to speak for others, and that's what I'm doing, working, giving back into the community. When I look at what's happening in the inner city with young Black males in America, we're in an urgent state of urgency and crisis with young men killing themselves. And when I go into an audience, and the audience, whatever the audience is that I speak to, I have to, I have to be number one, authentic. Two, have the knowledge that's needed to speak the truth, and third, the credibility behind it. So, and that's tailored for me. Um, Death is final, and working in this arena of death and shaping young people's lives through, like, for example, I'm meeting with the Department of Education regarding what are we going to do? How are we going to come up with a solution to address the issues that we're dealing with, the crisis of children and violence? Um, that's meaningful. That's a lot of to chew off of, to break off of, and chew on. But when I be able to speak to it, I have to be able to speak with it uh, from such a authentic way that it resonates, and and it opens doors. So it's a door opener for me. Now that may not be for everybody, but whatever the lane that an individual is in or chooses to be in, um, whatever makes them comfortable, whatever even if it's gardening, you know, and you want to become that expertise in that, whatever that craft is, that field is, whatever that genre is, it takes you applying your all, every ounce of who you are. It has to go into that, uh, and that is simply because you're working into your purpose. And
Mhm.
purpose is where we all, that's the where we all hope to get to, and a lot of people don't get that. I think I could say this: a lot of treasures, majority of the world's treasures, isn't in diamond mines or ruby mines or oil fields. It's in the graveyard. That's where people have gone. They've left, they've taken their dreams, their visions, their books, their mom's recipes, all those things with them. And so
Mhm.
it's about living out the best of what's inside you, bringing that out and supporting that and helping that come to fruition. So for me, it's children, young
Okay.
boys.
So let me ask you a follow-up question around that. So
Sure.
I hear that passion there,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
obviously when any of us are quite busy living,
Right.
surviving, having careers, having the job, working, la la la, we may or may not have the opportunity or the bandwidth to number one, realize what our passions are. And even if we did, we may not have an opportunity to act on them. I keep hearing that a lot as well. So I see what you wrote about midlife crisis. I asked the question, when did you first begin to feel like you were in midlife stages? And you
Mhm.
said the midlife crisis started around 40-ish, and some triggers shocked the conscious. This realization that you really want to do this work that you described, was that
Mhm.
one of the triggers that started to
Oh,
dawn upon you,
oh, most definitely. When you listen, when living a life, and you have to recognize there are things that come before you or things that you experience in your life that sets off an alarm.
Mhm.
And once you recognize what that alarm is all about, you want to address that alarm, or the house will come burning down.
Mhm.
That what that looks like is unfulfillment, right? And so when those triggers in my 40s that came before me, uh, and and these are things that I didn't go out looking for them, but it just arrived at my doorstep. And that would look like, I got a call. Can you come over and speak to this group, or can you come over and speak to that group, or can you help us assist us with this project or that project? And you get there and you find out that without even it's effortlessly what you do, right? What you How you perform, what you lay out, how you assist and help is almost effortlessly done. Well, that's great, but it still takes you to have the wherewithal to want to sharpen your skills,
Mhm.
those skill sets that you have. You always want to build on them and develop those to a point that you become a master at that. So yeah, I mean, there were things, instead of going out and buying a Corvette, and or buying a Harley Davidson motorcycle or whatever. And those things are nice. Don't get me wrong, but but it was more fulfilling to be able to recognize, hey, I have a talent at helping feed the homeless. I have this wonderful talent and that for being able just to listen to people and being able to sharpen those skills, because one day you'll be called upon for whatever reason it is. And if you've sharpened those skills and you've recognized what you possess, that
Mhm.
your God-given talents, those God-given things that you have in you, it allows you to use them in a much more fulfilling way. And
So,
I hope that makes sense.
oh, it does, because the next thing that I wanted to comment on, a part of your answer, um, you were talking about, you know, you may experience the feeling that it might be time to endeavor into another career.
Right,
Um, but you're way into this career.
right.
You're too far into this career to change. I hear that so much. I myself have struggled with that concept. So much of my identity is tied to what I've been doing for the past 20 years. And it's almost like the question is not so much whether you're able or capable of changing and endeavoring something new. It's, will you even allow yourself to even think about doing it? It's like you have to get permission from your own self to do it. And so, yeah, you mentioned the Corvette here too. Yeah. So we know what, so if you win the lottery, maybe that would be in your driveway.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but it just makes me, this is why this I think this conversation is so important for us to have, because I really like what you said. You have to prepare yourself and hone your skills in the event that somewhere down the line in the future you might be able to utilize these skills in some different capacity. So without making any assumption, I just want to, can you clarify for me, is that because it sounds to me like this is where people start to get the inkling of what their next career could be. And by career, I want to clarify that doesn't always necessarily have to be, I'm going to go and have another W-2 work day, 9 to 5 job. Another career could be volunteering. It could be an academic career. It could be public service, giving back to the community, things of what you're doing. To me, career has an expanded meaning. It's not just the things that you do to earn a paycheck and it has a name. I'm an accountant, I'm a lawyer, whatever. So I really like how you've touched on, there were triggers, and that this started around your 40s, 40
right,
ish is what you said.
right.
And so, and my mind is just, I have so many questions because I know your background. I know you've been in law enforcement, and
Sure.
I'm just trying to get this picture because I want to paint this picture for the audience. Like, you've got these experiences from childhood that shape your character. Then you go into adulthood, young adulthood, mid adulthood, whatever. You have your career, maybe you go to college, maybe you get a job, whatever. So you're just kind of going along the way. And whether you're aware of it or not, you're picking up all these experiences along the way. And then all of a sudden something happens around 40-ish, because I can, that's around the age when people start to become like super aware about things. And maybe it's because they're becoming a little bit more aware of their mortality. So this is why I think this midlife phase is another sensitive, when they talk about child development, they have what is referred to as sensitive periods in life, like there's certain blocks of age that are, like obviously prepubescent is a sensitive development time in your life, being a teenager, being a young adult, and you have all these phases, and very significant things typically happen around certain ages. And there's just not a lot of conversation around what happens around this mid age. So I want to hear more about these other triggers, because what I would like to reveal is I would like people to be aware of what that might feel like, and just so they can be aware of it. And and not to say tell them what to do about it, but just, hey, if you get this weird feeling around 40, you might be about to have a pivot. Don't be afraid of it. Don't try to suppress it. Just know that this happens, because you may not have heard about this before. And there's a cliche, the midlife crisis, I'm going to go out and buy the Corvette and get a tattoo and do, you've seen it. And there's like a movie, American with Kevin Spacey, where he just, he goes and works at a burger joint. He gets a muscle car, whatever. That's so cliche, but what you're on to is so much more meaningful. And I really would like for people to resonate in this message that there are deeper, more meaningful things that you can do. You can have your second wind at 40, 50, 60, and really make a huge impact on the world, if that's what you want to do. So what other triggers did you have around this 40 time?
Yes. So one of the things was my body taking a different form, and me not being able to, because I worked in law enforcement, was I couldn't keep up with the younger guys that were out there. So that was really a conscious war that I had. And who wants to eat salads all the time just to maintain, right? So that was it. And then, and then there was the other things that dealt with, innovation. When you start looking at computers and software and upgrades and things of those natures, that was bombarding me, and we were phasing out of. I think really learning to set aside each other at a table and communicate, where you could get the logistics and the understanding of what was communicated. And so I would say things to myself that, what, this may not be for me, but I'm too far in. I like doing things this way, which is more hands-on, which was more relatable for me, which was more comfortable. It was a comfort zone that I existed in. And then as you start looking at your finances, those was that was one. Did I invest enough? I'm living on a cop salary. Is that going to be enough for down the road? And then the days when I just wasn't happy because I just couldn't grasp with everything that was around me, and I felt that change was needed, but what that change looked like, I did not know. But the reserve me, the person that said to myself, "You're a perennial." What it is that you're trying to bloom. Figure out which direction you want to bloom in. You know, and for God's sake, don't if you bloom and you're going in a direction, it will be seamless. There's no effort to how how you bloom
Mm,
and transition. Transition should be seamless. And it's almost some of the things that I got into, for example, going back to school. It was a seamless transition. There was no effort. I looked at what I wanted to major in. I dove right into it. The paperwork, the filling out of the paperwork, all those minute things that you don't factor, that some people have hurdles getting over. It happened. Now, volunteering was one of the things that came to me, that and it was a transition. It was a smooth transition. It was like, people had a calendar, and I fit the calendar dates, and I just transitioned into it, and that gave me some fulfillment. But it also gave me a snapshot of the future. So, uh, literally, it was like pulling a bow and arrow, and you pull it back, and it was like I was going back to the future, and to launch myself into the future of what the potential was going to be for me once I came out of the crisis that I was in. So there's multiple uh, crisis points that shot up, from my weight size changing, me looking at my age, looking back on my career. And when I look back on my career, I would say, put it in this context. At 40, if it took away 20, I'm only 20 years old. I'm just starting. But at 40, if I add 20 years, I'm only 60. Well, my goodness, within the next 20 years, there's a lot that you can accomplish,
mhm.
right in the career that you're in, which is completion, fulfillment, of where you are, but also, you weave and make a space. And that's what I found that was really constructive in my life, was being able to take the time that I had and make a space for me to be able to indulge more into the things that were more attractive to me, right? So, I would make the time, for school. I would carve out the time to be able to enjoy the arts and learn a new skill. I would, and whether it was going to night school or taking a couple classes online versus going to a meeting, or where a group of people that would conjugate and just sit and do informationals, and we have talking sessions to grasp what that was like, or to be called upon to go down to the university and lecture in place of a professor, friends and stuff that I know, or cohorts, you know. So, the 40s was the gateway of identity, of understanding who I am as an individual. It was a gateway to say, okay, I'm okay. I may not be where I want to be financially or whatever, but if you put things in the right perspective as far as age and the direction that you're going, you can mold and shape and fit things in your life that will give you the best advantages to grow. And that's perennialism, being able to grow.
Oh, that's really powerful. I really enjoyed hearing that level of detail. Now, one of the things that you said, which I really picked up on, was that this was seamless for you. You just, you talked about, you had some triggers that, to quote you, shocked the conscious. You talked about some of the physical changes, and, then you were questioning, your career. Can I retire on a cop's salary, et cetera, et cetera. But regardless, you do say that it it was seamless. You just seemed to know, the direction that you wanted to go in. Now, I was going to ask this question later, but I think it's timely to ask this question of you now because I'm trying to consider, and I know some people who fit into this category and they're all over the place on age, but for the folks for whom it is not that seamless, and they feel like something's not quite right, something's a little off, like maybe they're thinking about, I don't know, I'm feeling that might be the pull, right? For those people for whom it's not that seamless, or they don't seem to have the perennial, mindset where they're just going to go right in. And it sounds like you just attacked. You just like, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to go do these things. What kind of advice could you give someone who may be experiencing the onset of this change? Maybe they're already experiencing it now and they don't really know how to make it seamless for themselves or what direction they want to go in. They just might be feeling like, maybe I need to start thinking about some things. What advice would you give to people?
First, trust yourself. It's like a doctor would tell you when you go into his office for an examination or you're not feeling well. Nobody can speak to you but you.
Mm-hmm.
Trust yourself. If you have an earache or toothache, you know what it feels like, and symptomatics and stuff. Trust yourself. And you say, well, how does that apply to life and experiences and those type of things? Well, you don't. There's no wrong answer when it comes to knowing what you want out of life. What the challenge is you preparing yourself for the challenge to make the choice in your life. We all have insecurities, and I'm speaking from experience now. Yes, Van says it this way. He's very direct about it, but it was trial. There was trial and error. I mean, that's life experiences. Not all things were seamless, but when I prepared myself and when I took the time out to understand what I really truly desired and what it took to get there, then I developed a method that was suitable for me to be able to get to where I wanted to be in stages. You take baby steps. You don't have to go from 0 to 10. 10 meaning, you're there. It doesn't always work that way. But there you can go from 0 to 3, right? And that's because just pure energy, pure enthusiasm, understanding who you are at each milestone. And then you can go from 0 to 1 and then to a -1, which is okay because the ultimate goal is for you to get to the desired place that you want to be. And so you shape that around that. So I mean, no, there are uncertainties in life and what you do and what you become, but you won't know if you don't take the initiative. Take that first step, and,
So,
and taking that step is a big thing.
so let me ask you this then. I mean, for the person who may not know how to take
Right.
that first step, they
Right.
may not know what their desires are.
Right.
What would you say to the person who could say, Van, I hear what you're saying. I get it, trust myself, but I just really have no clue. I don't trust myself because I'm indecisive. I have too many options. Maybe I feel like I have no options. I mean, that's just as frustrating. That's just the flip side of the same frustrating coin. You either have too many options and you can't make a decision, or you have the perception, because I never believe that there are no options. So I deliberately choose the word perception. So you have the
Right.
perception that you don't have any options, but
Right.
whether that's true or not, a person's perception is their reality. So even
Sure.
though they
Sure.
might have options, if they don't perceive that they have these options, then they, in their mind, they don't. So how would you, tell someone where to start so that they can, you know, figure out how to trust themselves and where to start at, point zero?
Grounds.
Some people
Yeah.
are just so like, I have no idea what I want to do. I don't even know who I am anymore. I've spent the past 20 years raising kids and whatever. And I've been this job for however long. And now look at me, I'm 42. And what the heck happened in the past 20 years? Oh my God, I don't even know what to do. And they're not calm enough or have enough direction to even take that step deeper. What would you tell that person who just really,
Yeah, yeah. For me, I have a niece that's like that, and one of the things I did was had her to do a little journaling.
mm,
Write out um, her likes and dislikes, and doing so, when you start journaling and writing down um, about who you are, and where you want to go, you'll it enables you to focus, bring that lens in closer and closer, and so and you become to recognize um, you that within that list there's something there that's spot on that will bring your attention directly to that, and whatever that spot on is what you endeavor into, but again, it doesn't have to go from 0 to 10. You can go from 0 to 1 and then go a -1 and then sling back, and continue to speak to yourself and engage yourself about what it is that will make you feel, what makes you feel comfortable, what brings a smile, and whatever that it is, you can arrive there, but only you can arrive there by one, writing it down and journaling it, and then likewise, if you write it down and journal it and get close, then you have to apply it, you have to do it, and when you do it, if it feels good, and if it's, again, I'll go back to seamless. It ought to be just an easy transition where you
mhm,
flow into it. If it's not comfortable, then make those adjustments. Right? That's
right.
life. That's reality. Make those adjustments, because the thing that you desire to do may be something that's beyond the scope of what your limits are, and that means that it just may not be a suitable fit for you, but it could be within the degree of what, there's something else. A lot of kids can't make the grade to be a nurse,
Hmm.
but they can be a LPN or a nurse's assistant. It's the same fulfillment, right? That
Gotcha.
we want to get out of that, right?
Mm,
You see what I'm saying? Everybody couldn't make the scale to be a police officer, a cop, but they can find pleasure in being a private investigator.
gotcha.
So there, it's there, and like you said, that buffet table has a lot to serve on it,
Hmm.
and but it takes the individual to bring it into focus, and only you can do. But then likewise, I would have that person to get out and talk and engage other people that are already doing what you desire to do.
Mm,
Or if you can't figure out what it is that you want to do, and you're running and you're stagnant, talk to others to try to experience a, a lot of things, a lot of different things. You never will know unless you get out and try and experience. Don't limit yourself to one or two things
mhm.
and spaces.
That's some great advice. So I just want to recap. So it sounds like self-reflection, journaling, writing it down, um, and and doing some inquiry to others, And I really like what you said, because I think that about, you know, if you can't do this precise thing, there might be other areas that are analogous to that precise thing. And I really
Exactly.
like the reminder about that, because I think sometimes we have a tendency to get hung up on that one thing that we want. If we can't have that within Pui, then we're like in a bad mood, or, oh, I'm a failure, I can't do it, la la. And that, and then there's this like, there's some negative connotations around that, but I love the idea that, you can find something else close to that and find the satisfaction. So I want to add to that and say that, if you can be open to doing something that's analogous to that one thing or a couple of things, once you figure them out, if you focus on the meaningfulness behind it, rather than the thing itself. So don't get so stuck on the absolute outcome. There's there's a Buddhist phrase, and I'm going to totally mess this up, but it has to do with just basically it has to do with not getting fixed on the outcome, the thing, like what I'm trying to, but they say it more eloquently. But basically, if you go deeper and what is it that is about that thing that you wanted, that you are, why are you seeking that out? What's the satisfaction? What's the meaning behind it? There could be other things. Like I wanted to be an architect when I was growing up. For a lot of different reasons, that just didn't happen, namely, women weren't necessarily supported in pursuing this very male dominated career. So that didn't happen for me. But hey, I am one heck of an interior designer at heart, so there are other ways to, get that joy out of manipulating spaces. That's just one example, but I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think people can get fixed and focused on, very particular things, and they, in doing so, unfortunately, can miss so many opportunities for joy and satisfaction and meaning if they would just keep their mind open. So thank you for that. We are we have just a couple more minutes left, but I did want to ask you just two more things if I could. Can I get you
Okay.
for another couple? Okay.
Oh, of course, right.
Right. So I'm not going to turn it into a power call like we had last week. That was quite fun though. I will have to do that again.
Yes, ma'am.
So I asked you, what three words would you use to describe the experience you're having right now? And you said confident, anxious, and happy. Confident, anxious, and happy. So quickly tell me, what gives you confidence? What makes you anxious? And what makes you happy?
Good. Wow. Okay. So I wrote that. Okay. Confident it came through the ability to see myself um, working to accomplish a goal. And confidence was me being able to sit down and write. Um, and understand, I had, growing up, I had a learning disability that I kept secret. There was no diagnosing uh, the learning disability that I had back in the day. And so I've grown to be very confident in my writing skills and very confident in myself as a person. And that's the thing that that was within that that grows, right?
Mhm.
It's something that you nurture, and that I've nurtured my level of confidence to be able to say that if it's out there and I choose to uh, do it, I'm confident enough that I can step off into the abyss without question, and with God help, quite naturally. Well, I want to add that point to it, that I'm confident that I can get things done. The next one was what? Confident and
What makes you anxious?
anxious. Oh wow. Yeah, I'm anxious about the future. I'm so anxious about things turning around and going in a good direction for humanity.
So that's
And I think I
a
guess
good anxious, a good
yeah, that's a
anxious.
yeah, good anxious. I'm
Okay.
very I'm optimistic about it.
All right.
I'm very optimistic about the future, and so I'm anxious to see um, uh, that the world will at some point reshape. The people of the world be reshaped. COVID taught us a lot about people and humanity, and I'm just waiting to see what the results from a holistic world view, how everything will shape and grow as far as humanity. I'm very anxious about that. When I see people on the streets greeting each other in a fashion, in a way that I've never, experienced. Um, People holding the door for you to walk in. If you're coming in, they don't mind. And people are saying things like, "I hope you have a nice day." Strangers, right? Complete
Mhm.
strangers. So yeah, that that's a good thing,
That's great.
and
Is that
and
part of what makes you happy, which was the
it
next
is
thing?
well, yeah. Happiness is created, right?
Mhm.
It has to be created. It's happiness just isn't just sitting there. It's one of the things where we all engage, and we all should be happy. Although the world is a cursed place and there's chaotic things happening, but I like to always have room to be able to say that made me happy or this makes me happy. Um, and so, yeah, I'm happy. And there are things that make us sad, quite naturally. I mean, I'm a realist. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I'm happy about a lot of things. I'm happy about this. I'm happy about hopefully that that the takeaway from this will benefit somebody, and it helps somebody smile and be happy and say, wow, that's me. I can identify with certain segments of this, or I can agree to disagree with some part of it, but still it made me happy, right? So
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, I'm happy.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
One last thing, because I
sure.
am so intrigued by this. This is the very last part. I couldn't
Oh
wait to
wow.
get to this part.
Okay.
You said, within a man remains a kid, young adult, and man,
Oh wow.
which will manifest during a midlife crisis. Can you
Yes.
just quickly elaborate on that for us? Because I cannot leave today without
I
getting
cannot. I cannot
behind
believe
what is that deep thing there that you said. Please send us off with that. You got to
oh,
bring it on home with that. Please
oh
elaborate
wow.
on that.
So within a man is a kid, a young man, and a man, right? Okay.
A kid, a
So
young adult, and a man, which will
kid, a young,
manifest during a midlife crisis. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. I have a childlike this behavior um that came out of me. It's like I reverted back to almost like a sixth grade prankster, right? And yeah, yeah. And so um
That's
and
why the red
then
Corvette is on the scene, right?
that could go any part of the spectrum. Yeah. But the kid in you allows you to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to have fun at all cost, right?
Mhm.
I'm going to be able to just enjoy myself, and it doesn't cost me anything. So children can make a good time out of playing with a stick,
Mhm.
a crayon, um, and listen and enjoy and embrace the child that's in that man.
Mhm.
And if it's just eating cotton candy and corn dogs and having a big soda, so what? Live it, embrace it, enjoy that aspect of it. And then the young man is that transition thing where you're trying to figure out things about life and where you are going or where you should have been. But you know what? You just want to just um, get in where you can fit in.
Mhm.
And if that's standing on the wall at a party, right?
Mhm.
And looking across the room at and seeing a young lady or and she's intimidating or that person that you want to engage, but you don't have the nerve to do it, guess what? That's okay too. Uh,
Mhm.
and that young man is a constant reminder that we should grow and that growing is a part of life. And you don't have to have an answer for everything. You just live life and embrace it at that tender age mindset.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and then the older man, you're gonna see um, he's gonna struggle.
Mm.
He's gonna struggle for the youth that was there. He's gonna struggle and think about the child that was there at one time and reflect on that in so many different ways when he looks back, and it manifests through him, that older gentleman, simply because he's aged, um, and eternity is there, and it's ever knocking at the door, and so memories fun and imbued, um, that slips into the future. And so he carries both of them, uh, the young, the kid, and the young man with him into the future. And he can't recapture that, but it does manifest.
Mm.
It does manifest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for elaborating on that.
Yeah.
Before we end, do you have any information that you would like to share with the audience in terms of the projects that you're working on? Anything that you would like for us to be aware of?
Yeah. I'm the chapter president of Thailand, chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha, in which the chapter president, and I'm having a wonderful time. I'm very encouraged that the group of men and young men that I'm working with and learning from, and we're very engaged. I'm inspired. We have 8 young men working on their PhDs along with me. Some are
Wonderful.
going back to get their masters. We've engaged into a young Kings of Distinction into elementary school, where on a weekly basis we work with kids in the inner city, which is really important to. And I'm the person that likes FaceTime, so we're there in the school, actually interacting with these kids to help them grow, to develop their skills. Home training is what we call it.
Mhm.
And in other areas, I'm working with local bishops and community leaders when it comes to curbing the violence that's happening in the community and trying to come up with solutions about these types of problems. And then learning to become academician, working on a doctorate, and finishing one and rolling into another.
Mhm.
So those are some things that I could spotlight and say. And know this, know this. It takes everybody. It takes a village. Move beyond the things that that are presented in the news. There's wars going on. There's all type of dysfunctionalities and people that are saying things that don't. That if it doesn't benefit the whole, it's um, I'm not saying discard it, but look for leaders. We need more leaders. We need community leaders. We need people grassroots in the neighborhoods that see a child that's walking by, lift that child up, and
Mhm.
and that's really important to keeping a community built and safe. It's all
Okay.
about humanity. Yeah, yeah. So that's where I'm
I
at.
love that word. I love
Yeah,
that's one of your great words.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I would ask you, if you have a link, or a website or something that you can just give it to me, and I'll include it in the video. So
Sure.
if you would like for people to follow the work that you're doing, or to check out some of the organizations that you're helping,
Yeah,
I'm happy to share that. So please, give that to me, and I'll make sure to get that out there.
I sure will. I sure will.
And
And
yes,
what a pleasure. I tell
it
you, thank you
it has
so
really,
much.
truly been a pleasure. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. This is the
yeah,
very first episode of the Pivoting Wolf, and I'm just so
yeah,
honored to have
yeah.
you here.
Likewise.
And thank you so much for sharing your light. I really very sincerely appreciate your insights,
Yeah.
your very obvious passion, and your positivity. And last but not least, your humanity.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much. I have really enjoyed speaking with you, and I'm certain that people can take something away from this very interesting conversation that we've had today. And I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Yeah.
And to our audience, thank you for watching, listening, and stay tuned for future episodes of The Pivoting Wolf. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Much love. Bye bye.